There we go.
Going live on the YouTubes. I'm recording on my Zoom.
You ready to rock?
And we are on.
All right. Hey, everybody. Welcome to Your Creative Journey Live. Glad to have you here. I am Kevin Gregg. What's your name, Paul?
Still Paul Carganilla.
Yes, you are. And we've got an awesome guest with us tonight, Eric Close. Hey, Eric, say hi to all of our YouTube folks.
Hey, all you YouTube folks. How are you tonight?
Glad to have you here. Oh my gosh, we've got a bunch of stuff that we're talking about just before, we got to figure out a way, Paul, with this at some point. Like we'll have like premium channels or stuff where people can visit us as we have like our pre conversation that people don't get to see. Because we were just talking a second about you battling the COVID stuff and everything that you've gone through. And Eric was sharing some of that. It's been a nutty week. So I'm glad that you're doing a little bit better. What Eric doesn't know is that Paul got to be in a hotel room because his daughter is part of is it a Netflix series?
The one she's working on right now is an Apple Plus series.
Ah, gotcha.
But yeah, she wrapped on Tuesday, and on Wednesday she leaves to go do the Netflix one.
Go ahead.
She's doing two shows.
Yeah.
Man alive.
Wow.
So the production company, when the production company found out that I tested positive, they came in and swooped me out of the house, put me in a hotel, and brought a crew in to fog the house and clean it up so she wouldn't get it. And it worked. I mean, and she tests twice a day when she's working, and
crazy, man.
She's been good.
I was gonna say she's doing two shows. You need to have her on the show.
That's what I keep telling Kevin, and he's like,
I'm not saying that at all. We can absolutely. His daughter is adorable. She's absolutely amazing, and I'll tell you what, she'd be a better host than I would. That's for sure.
We just got to see her trailer for the first time. It comes out tomorrow, the trailer for her movie.
So cool.
Yeah.
Hopefully we'll talk about that on the podcast as well. Hey, first of all, I want to say hi to all of our YouTube people that are joining us. As always, I got to give a shout out. We got Angelica's here, Kelsey's here, Diana's here. Hi, Melissa's here. We've got Meryl's here, Christina. Who else is here, Paul? Look at all these people, man. Love you guys dearly. Dari's here as always. We're missing tonight. Unfortunately, producer Craig is not going to be with us for a while. He's got
for good reason.
Yes, of course it is. His agent reached out to him and contacted him and said, "Hey, listen, I want you to be a part of an acting class to work on some stuff, and it's happening on Tuesday nights. And hey, man, that's what the creative journey is about, right? Like getting better on it. So why the heck not?" Cool. But so glad to have you here. Guys, we're going to jump right into the audio podcast in just a second. Diana says, "Hi, Eric. It's very nice to meet you." Hey, HD Photography. I don't know who that is, but
that's
glad
Heather.
to have.
That's social media Heather.
Oh, social media Heather. I'm sorry. Sometimes when I see people's names, their usernames, I just don't know who.
That's on Saturday nights. I'm always like, "Who are you? Good to see you. Thanks for being here." And then I'm like,
Eric, I got a shout out here. Eric, do you know a Dan Bells at all?
I know Dan quite well.
He's a
good buddy of mine.
Dan and
so is his wife Nita.
That's right. Dan and Nita are saying hello on YouTube, so they're here.
Thanks for joining us.
See, people join us. Well, here's what we're going to do. We're going to dive right into the audio podcast. And listen, if you have any questions that pop up during the show, do me a favor in the comment section. Just put it like in big, bold cap letters. So then that way, when I go through the stream, I can take a look and then ask your question as we do it. So with that said, Paul, I think I'm going to have you introduce our audio podcast this week. What do you think, buddy?
I'll be gentle.
Okay, here we go. In 5, 4, 3, 2.
Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Your Creative Journey podcast. I'm Paul Carganilla.
And I am Kevin Gregg, and we're so glad to have you on this show, which is designed to help creative people get their work done. Whether you're an actor, writer, director, singer, dancer, musician, painter, ballet, contortionist, what else, Paul? What else could they be?
Three-hole punch artist, master Elmer's glue chef, pimple poppers.
Oh, my wife loves that show. Well, there's an art to it.
Guilty pleasure.
But even if you love it, you're welcome here, and we hope that you get inspired from our conversation tonight.
We're so glad to have you on the show. It's designed to help you get your creative work done, no matter what it is, whether you're an active artist, a professional artist, an aspiring artist, business person, entrepreneur, whatever it is. This is a show for you. We have wonderful guests that come on the show every week to talk about their creative journey, the challenges, the wins, the things that they've gone through, and they'll also help to inspire our audience. We got a great guest that's on tonight. He's a dear friend of mine, actor, director, writer. You may know him from such series as Without a Trace, also Nashville. He's even worked with Clint Eastwood. He is a talent. Welcome to the show, Eric Close.
Thank you, Kevin. Paul, it's good to see you guys.
Welcome. Pleasure to meet you. And thank you for being here with us.
Absolutely.
Eric, for those people that are listening on the audio podcast, Eric has such a director's eye, right? Like, I mean, I was getting texts from him beforehand, like going, listen, man, is my framing good? What do I need to do? And look at this. He's just got this is that a real fire that you got going?
No, it's gas fireplace. I would, I want a wood burning fireplace. And so we've entertained the idea of putting one, but then once you put the wood burning fireplace in, then you're always cleaning it up. And
yes,
so this is kind of nice. All I do is push a button and it's off.
That's amazing.
Kevin's just making fun of me because normally I have a TV on that stand back there playing a fireplace. So he was like,
those are cool, actually.
I know.
And you like, I even put, I had the prop department put in a guitar. I don't even play the guitar. I just said, hey, bring a guitar in. It'll look cool,
I was going to say, we're kind of getting a Hunter vibe. We have a performer on Thursday nights who plays guitar by the fireplace wearing flannels. And he has a show on Thursday nights. So I was like, great. Eric's kind of bringing the Hunter vibe.
Yeah, the old, the old flannel guy. And then all those pictures back there, just random people. I don't know who they are.
He got them out of magazines and just put them in frames like that.
They're actually the photos in the frame when he bought them.
I will say this. I'm going to give a special shout out to my wife, Kate. For audio podcast people, you're not seeing this, but the YouTube people are. Kate has been working. She's been so mad at me every time I do this every week. She says, your background, we've got to figure this out. So she came in and she hung up some extra different pictures and stuff that are around there. I'm messing around with a little bit of lighting to make it look better. I did notice this, which is just this is all me. This is not Kate, but we've got those two metal things that are up there. So unfortunately, throughout the show, it may look like I have ears. So
ears.
I've noticed they've moved around. So, Kate, good job. I love I'm trying to get this one over your left shoulder. It looks like I can't really see. It looks like someone lying in their back.
So this is a picture of Ophelia drowning from Hamlet. It's a very famous picture right there. So anyway, we're working it out. It's just she's doing it all. I'm very proud of her. I've got some lighting. So it will be changing, but she's doing it. Hey, Eric, we're going to dive into your stuff in a second. But as we start every show at the top, we always ask, what was the best thing that happened in people's weeks? So, Paul, I think I'm going to start with you, buddy. What was the best thing that happened in your week? And Eric, please feel free to jump in, ask questions, and what have you.
I got to come home after for the first time in my life, spending 10 days in one room with no other people. I got to come home and get hugs from my family, and that was just everything.
I'll have to tell you, the most beautiful picture. I mean, first of all, your family is so gorgeous, Paul, but like that picture of you and Everly and Noah and the dog, and it's right there. I mean, it looks like it's right out of like a Sears catalog or something. It's amazing. So
yeah, that was a really cool moment.
Good for you, man. How many days were you quarantined? Like 10 days or?
Yeah, 10 days.
Good on you.
It was weird. It was really weird. I mean, even when we went through it, like I think I mentioned last week, when we went through it the first time with the rest of the family, we were all in the house together.
Yeah.
And this was the first time I'd ever been just by myself. I wasn't like, obviously thank God for technology and the Zooms and the virtual. Oh man, my friends were so supportive. We had game nights. Another buddy of mine, he would hooked me up with a free astrology map chart of the day you were born reading that burned some time. But it was just I had so much fun stuff to just do. There was never a dull moment in those 10 days, but it was just really weird being in the same room with no other people for 10 days.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad that you're back home, man, and healthy and well.
How about you? What was the best part of your week?
I'm going to say something crazy. First of all, I've been super grateful. My wife has been just doing amazing. Here's great news that we had. Kate actually qualified to get her first round of the Moderna vaccine today, which is great, right? It's huge because she qualifies as she officially qualifies as a caregiver for Duncan. So it was awesome. Here's the thing that made me so very happy. And I told her, I'm going to talk about this on the show. So we have crazy things that we do in our home that I'm sure that people on this podcast right now are going to say, what is wrong with your family? Kate loves to do things like she loves to scare people, right? Like she loves to she loves to jump out, or jump out behind a thing. Something else that Kate loves to do to me on a regular basis is she'll hide my phone. She'll hide my phone. Now, I talk about it on the podcast where I normally shut down my phone on Sundays. I don't listen to it all. Today, I got to have an extra experience of that because Kate decided that she wanted to have fun, right? And so she decided that she was going to hide my phone. And of course, she left to go get the shot. And I'm looking around for the phone and I realize I can't find it. I think she's hidden it. And I call her up on the phone and I'm talking to her and she says, yeah, I'm in your car and it's crazy. And this audiobook, I can't get this audiobook to turn off. And I said, yeah, you can't get it to turn off because you have my phone in your pocket. To which she just goes, oh no. She like completely feels so bad and so sorry. Here's the deal. Fortunately, I was able to survive the rest of the afternoon. Actually, Eric, when you tried to get in contact with me, you couldn't get in contact with me because my wife had the phone.
Stolen your phone. She stole your phone.
He had stolen my phone. Here's the good thing. I wasn't angry about it, but it was a moment of going, see where these pranks lead you? So anyway, is that weird that that's the best thing that happened in my life? I don't know.
Not if like that teaches her to not do it anymore. Then it would be a blessing, right?
Who knows? It's a good thing. So that was one of my favorite things that happened this week. Eric, what was one of the favorite things that happened to you this week, brother?
I got a couple I have to share. I think my teenage daughter asked me to go to Target with her last night. That's a pretty big deal,
Okay, good.
Hey, Dad, will you go with me to Target? You sure you don't want Mom to go with you? No, yes. Come with me, and then will you buy everything for me? Yeah, sure. Yes. So right. that was actually cool. But the winters here are crazy. So we live in this kind of wild microclimate in Bend, Oregon, and so you can have a foot of snow on the ground one week, and then the next week you're wearing a t-shirt. So my neighbor called me on Saturday and said, because we had a foot of snow on the ground like a week and a half ago, and it all melted. And he said, hey, you want to go play golf? I said, I mean, look, we're in the middle, it's February. Right. And I said, sure. So we went and played, and I hadn't played in a long time. He shot a 76. I shot a 78. It was one of the best scores I've ever shot. So It was kind of nice. And then yesterday for half a day, my wife and I went skiing for the first time this season because we just haven't had a chance. And, we were both sick. And so we were laid up for 14 days or whatever the time is you have to kind of hunker down. And so we watched a lot of movies. You get these mailers to vote for, the movies. And I don't know if I'm allowed to plug movies on here, but
why not? Go for it.
There's a wonderful film you got to see called Nomadland with Frances McDormand. It is just beautiful. I don't know if it's out on Hulu yet, but I've been telling everybody they got to watch. I've already seen it twice. So anyway, that was a highlight. Just getting to play golf with my buddy and then ski with my wife yesterday, and a friend who lost his dad to COVID, and so we went skiing with him, and so that was nice just to get out and get some fresh air. And the mountain's basically empty because not very many people are skiing because it's limited to how many people can go, and you have to wear a mask when you're skiing, and
totally, man.
It was cool.
Those climates are so strange, right? I just got a picture from a friend of mine that lives in Virginia, and the same thing. Like they had hey, here's our morning, and it just looks like it's a winter wonderland, and here's our afternoon, and everything's melted, and it looks like it's the middle of summer. It's crazy.
It is crazy. It's nuts. I mean, we're expecting a bunch of sno. It's coming, I think, tomorrow. So.
Unbelievable, man.
They'll be gone again.
It's how it goes. So Eric, I'm so glad to have you on the show here, man. We're going to dive in and talk about your path, the stuff that you've done in your career. We were having a conversation about a week before, so I'm very interested, especially as we get towards the latter part of this. There's a lot of similarities that you and I have gone through recently. But how the heck did you get involved in this acting game? You were originally born in New York, is that correct?
Yeah, I was born in New York on Staten Island. My dad's a surgeon. My mom's an artist, and a great mom, and raised. I don't know how she survived raising three crazy brothers, or sons. I have two brothers, and we ended up in San Diego. And my folks really kind of they were passionate about introducing us to the arts. So we grew up around a lot of music. My mom's a singer and she sang with the symphony in San Diego. So we were exposed at an early age to, classical music, opera, jazz, and, theater and all that stuff.
Yeah.
So I liked doing plays and all that. And
were you doing them in high school?
Yeah. And really I started out in even in elementary and junior high. Really? And then I kind of shied away from it in high school. I was playing a lot of sports. I was a competitive tennis player. So that really kind of took a lot of my focus. But when I ended up in college, I wasn't a great student. And you start really thinking about, you try different things. And, first was obviously I was like, oh, I'll go pre-med and try to work with my dad. Then I figured out real quickly I wasn't going to get through chemistry and all that stuff.
Right.
And I took a semester and went to Madrid and studied there and studied art history and et cetera. And my friend who ended up, when the semester was over, we decided to take a little time there. And we just started talking about what we wanted to do in the future. And she was going to go into the film business. And I'm like, wow, that sounds really cool. Let's talk about that. And the more we discussed it, I thought, yeah, that's really what I want to do. I want to tell stories. I love telling stories. And so we went back to SC and I started, I declared a major and started taking film classes. Jay Roach, the guy who directed the Austin Powers, he was my DP. He was my DP class teacher. And I knew I wasn't going to be a DP because my project came out black on screen. You couldn't see
Oh no! I knew. No! Was it
16
millimeter? Was it 16 millimeter or 13 millimeter, or what were you guys using?
I think it was probably 16 or Super 16.
Oh no!
Yeah, it was rough, but it was short. But because I wanted to be like this Moonlight, and these gangsters were exchanging cash, and everybody's like, "Where's the actors?"
That's
was it the time where you couldn't see playback?
Oh yeah, no, it just showed up, and I'm like, oh boy.
No,
but it was a great lesson. The great lesson was that I was not going to be a DP. And then at that point, while I was studying film, several of the people I was at USC with asked me to be in their student films. So I started doing some acting in those student films, and I really enjoyed it. But at that time in my life, I just wanted to absorb whatever I could about every aspect of the film business. And, I was a boom operator, dolly grip. I was probably one of the most stressful jobs is loading film and changing film in the bag. You have this black bag that you zip close and you put your arms in it and you're changing the film that's already been exposed that you shot for the day.
We just had James Dornoff on, a buddy of ours who was
that. That's right.
Being the bag man, man. It's crazy.
So
high pressure.
Really, super stressful. But I loved it. And so I just really really absorbed it. But once I got out of college, and I really decided that I wanted to start going the acting route, that's when I did a complete 180 from focusing on directing. I said, I don't want to give up on that, but I feel like everything's pointing me to start acting. And that's when I really dove in.
Yeah. And was it, you're just kind of learning. I mean, what point of your college career was it at the very tail end? Because I always felt like, especially when I was in school, and I'm sure that Paul can testify to this too. Now, a little bit different with the fact that you're in USC, which is a very, very business heavy school, right? So they already have their thumb on the pulse, which is that. But I know for myself, making the transition from hey, I'm working and performing here in college to then making the shift, there was a lot of stuff that I was just trying to figure out on my own. Was that necessarily the case with you or no?
Yeah, I don't know about for yourself, but I didn't know anybody in the business. And there was the fraternity I was part of at USC had an alumni day, and someone I had already at this point decided I wanted to be in the film business. And a friend of mine said, hey, you really need to meet these two guys. One guy's name is Kerry McCluggage, who used to run Universal Television, and a guy named Ron Schwery, who won an Oscar for Robert Redford directed it, not on Golden Pond, Ordinary People.
Mm-hmm.
And it was Ron's first movie out of film school that he produced, and Redford's first movie directing, then won the Oscar.
Shoot.
And I was just, and Ron passed away this year or last year, but during this COVID time, and he was my first real mentor.
Yeah.
And he was, and I pursued him, and I didn't want anything from him other than just wisdom, just advice. What do you think about, this is what I want to do. I want to get into this business. I don't know a soul, and just give me some advice. I'm not asking for any favors or anything. And at first he kind of discouraged me. When I told him I was going to be an actor, he was like, well, I bet you Redford would tell you don't do it, or something. I'm like,
right.
Well, he did it. But anytime someone told me no, I always was more motivated to go the other direction. When someone, what I mean?
What was that about? What was that for? What was that about for you?
I didn't want to be told that I couldn't do it until I tried. I think it was, I met Tom Cruise one time, at NBC after I had started acting, and I just had no fear, and I went up to him, and he had been on the Jay Leno show, and I was walking next to him, and he said hello, and we started chatting a little bit, and then he got swept away by some people, and then we went outside. I went outside, and I go, I really wanted to ask him a couple questions, so I started walking back to go talk to Tom Cruise again. And he remembered my name. He sees me coming. He goes, hey, Eric, what's going on? And I said, I wanted to ask you a question. He says, yeah, hold on, guys. And he just tells his team to hang on. And we went down and sat on the hood of this white station wagon. And I asked him some questions and some advice. And he gave me some great advice. And then he said, well, I got to go. And he jumped in the driver's seat. His team jumped in. And he just drove this little white station wagon out. And I just was like, wow, I just can't believe that just happened. But he was super encouraging to have a plan and to not be discouraged and just keep doing good work. And then that would get work,
I'm gonna tell you something right now, Eric. I feel like this is God sent right now. Okay. Please remember what you just said here, especially as we get towards the end of our conversation.
Yeah.
Because there's something here that is like, it has been built in you of just saying, well, no, I don't want to be told no. I need to find out. I need to do that. Anyway, I just wanted to bookmark that for us because it's coming back. That's for sure.
Yeah.
You started getting involved in the, so for you, what ended up happening? Did you end up getting like guest spots or little spots? I know that we talked a little bit about commercial stuff that ended up not going your route because you ended up kind of falling into these spots that ended up leading into series.
Well, it was funny because I was working as a bank teller for First Interstate Bank downtown. And I had, my brother had a commercial agent, my younger brother, Randy.
And he was in the bit, was he following, he was following in your steps?
He was kind of ahead of me at a certain point because he was modeling and doing commercials, and he knew I was wanting to direct and try and go the production route. And he said, hey, while you're doing that and you're working at the bank, why don't you try and do some commercials or some modeling or whatever? I'm like, yeah, that'd be great. I got to earn some money. And so I started doing that, and I booked 2 national commercials almost immediately. Yeah. And I got my SAG card, and I went, and that was one of those things that I felt like, what, I think this is what I'm supposed to be doing. Mm-hmm. So when I said that I dove in, I don't know if you remember, but there was this Dramalog magazine, and you could go
totally. The minute you said that, I just had such a flashback of Dramalog.
And so I would go get the Dramalog magazine, and I had headshots. My buddy David Laporte shot my headshots, and I went and got my headshots, and I would scour that thing. It didn't matter what it was, student films, karaoke videos. I did a number of those for I think $200. And I thought I was rich, give me $250. I'm like, I've made it, and I would, and I remember being in Boston one time. I was working on a project years later, and they played this karaoke video that I was in with a Phil Collins song, and it was so bad. But anyway, so I did everything I could just to kind of get some, because people kept saying, you got to get some footage of you got to get something to put a reel together. So I did student films. You do it for free. And oftentimes I'd be working on the student film as an actor and then helping out on, doing crew stuff.
And again, so challenging. I have to let people know this too, because this is part of that business as well, was that trying to get this footage. I mean, like, you're trying to get footage and put the stuff together. And this is in the days, ladies and gentlemen, of like, great, I've got videotape copies or beta copies of stuff, right? Yeah. And now I've got to go to an editor. How much stuff has changed even in the last 20 years is night and day, because it was just like, it was so difficult trying to get stuff. You'd work on a short film and then you'd hope that maybe you could get a VHS copy of the film, and then you'd have to go pay an editor, $300-400 to get the stuff put together, and you had to make sure that you were editing it right. Not an easy task, man.
No.
Not.
And you know what, you have to hustle. You hear this word, you've got to, and I don't mean hustle like trying to deceive people, but I mean hustle. You gotta
grind. You gotta grind.
Yeah, you gotta grind. And I'm working as a bank teller, and I would ask my manager, hey, I got this commercial audition. Can I go at lunch? And I'd always try to have my agent scheduling me around lunchtime. And I'd race out of there downtown LA and taking my tie like Superman, the shirt off, changing and running through the parking garage. And I'm driving out of the parking garage in my underwear, waving, putting my pants on the 110 freeway, trying to get to Hollywood. And so I really hustled. And then, like I said, I got some of those commercials, and then I was like, I gotta really take this serious. I need to get into an acting studio. And a guy who was absolutely instrumental in my career is an acting teacher named Howard Fine. Mm-hmm. And it's a longer story, but I met Howard in a class I was taking at UCLA, and I had, through Dramalog, had secured myself, as I didn't have an agent or anything, I secured an audition for like 90210 or 21 Jump Street. And he was talking about his technique, and I just said, hey, I have this audition tomorrow. Do you want to use me as a guinea pig and show the class how you do, your technique? And he goes, no, I don't really want to do that. I just want to, talk about my studio and stuff and what I do. And he was kind, but he didn't want to go down that road. And the class kind of moaned and went, oh, come on, that would be really cool. And to Howard's credit, he went, all right, look, if you can get me a copy of the sides before we get back from our 10-minute break, I'll do it. But if you don't have it, then I'm not doing it. So I ran around the UCLA campus trying to find a copying machine at 9:00 at night. And I found a room open, and there was a Xerox machine, and the person was in there cleaning. And I said, I'm from the dean's office, and I need to get this copied. And she's like, whatever, just, So I turn on the Xerox machine, I copy the sides, I staple it, and I run back, and everybody's sitting down. And Howard's up on stage, and I hold the sides up like this, and he just shakes his head like, I can't believe this kid.
Wow.
I think I was 22 years old. And he goes, all right, get up here. And we get up on the stage, and we start doing the scene, and my heart is pounding in my chest. I'm so nervous. I'm so stiff. I'm just terrible. And he reaches behind him, and he grabs this eraser, and it was one of those whiteboards. So it's not chalk. It's like ink that you draw on, those whiteboards.
Yep.
And he takes the eraser, and he hits me across the face with it. And all this black ink goes across my face, and the whole class goes, like, Seth, I can't believe you just hit me with this thing. And I got red in the face, and Howard goes, do the scene. And I started doing the scene, and I had all this emotion and this anger and, embarrassment, and the whole class just sat forward, and the scene came alive. Right.
Yeah.
And then he goes, all right, you can stop there. And he goes, that is acting. You have to, he goes, that's what you got to learn to do. And I'm like, so I'm going to get, like, directors are going to hit me. But what the cool thing was, is we had pagers back then. We didn't have cell phones.
Right.
I'm dating myself, but I sent Howard a handwritten note, and I said, thank you for doing that. You didn't have to do that. I put you on the spot. And Howard paged me and invited me to come study in his studio. And that was really the beginning of really taking. And then shortly after joining his studio, I auditioned for like 2 lines in a play. And the director called me and said, I want to cast you as the lead in my play. And I'm like, well, I just want to do 2 lines. I'm not ready to be a lead in a play. Yeah. But then I thought, you know what, let's go for it. And so I got a lead in a play, and I did that in Silver Lake for like a year, I guess. And I got an agent out of it, and that kind of started opening more doors.
Crazy, man.
Yeah.
Crazy. What a heck of a journey.
Really important part of this journey is you went to USC, and then you took classes at UCLA.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah, I'm not proud of it, but I know.
I went to
It's
UCLA
like,
for a little bit, but that, that's pretty interesting. So was it like were you enrolled, or was it
like living in Kansas City and rooting for the Buccaneers? It's like,
Right. Sure. Sure.
right.
Was Howard Fine, was his class just happen to be on the UCLA campus? Or
No, so Michael Tucci who's an actor. He was in the original
yeah.
Grease. Yeah, awesome guy.
Fantastic.
Michael was teaching this class called The Business of Acting. And I
Mhm.
thought, well, it is a business. It's called show business.
Mhm.
I should learn what it's about. So Joe Mantegna and George Wendt came and spoke one night about acting. Iris Grossman came and spoke. Fred Silverman came and spoke. Howard Fine came and spoke. And so it was just awesome. And it was cool because, Joe Mantegna and I became friends years later. And I always, whenever I see him, we always talk about, you came and talked to me when I was a 22-year-old kid in this class, and you inspired me. And I ended up working with Joe on Criminal Minds. It's so cool.
That's
so
unbelievable.
Yeah, it is. And, but Howard was super instrumental. Like I said, it helped build one of the things you need in this journey, whether you're acting, directing, dancing, whatever it is, you're a contortionist, a 3-hole puncher, whatever you said.
Great callback, Eric. Great callback.
You need moments that build your confidence.
Yeah.
Because this business can hurt your confidence at times, and you can get discouraged. And so it's, there's different things. It's, being in acting class with your peers and going out for coffee at the end of the night after a long, great night of scene study, and just hanging out and talking about your favorite movies and how great the scene was or how it wasn't so great. Those little things are confidence booster. And then you ask, like, did I get a guest star or something? And I did. It was very interesting. My brother invited me to the Bill Graham tribute concert. You remember he had passed away, and he was the big concert promoter, and he was doing a Grateful Dead show up in San Francisco. And my brother had invited me to go, and I was like, I really would love to go, but I just feel like I need to hang in town. My agents are trying to get me out for some auditions, and I stayed in town. And I ended up going to Paramount and auditioning for a MacGyver episode with Richard Dean Anderson.
Yes.
And I got the part, and the role was cop or police officer or whatever, or security guard. It was security guard.
Yeah.
And I help him, I help MacGyver thwart some big bomb threat. And, he gets a piece of gum and a paper clip and saves the day, whatever.
Right.
But it was such a huge confidence booster to just get a role, and just suddenly a role on a network show that was, so those little victories, build your confidence. You go, okay, I think I can do it. It starts with getting into a commercial. Maybe you get an acting class, then you get a lead in a play that you thought you were just going to do 2 lines. And then, if you're lucky enough, at some point you get an agent, and you go, okay, I got somebody who believes in me, and they're going to go to bat for me, and they're going to fight for me. And because you need that too. Yeah.
Well, I'm thinking about this because I want to jump ahead just a little bit here, but I know that there's immediately in my mind, I think about 2 interesting chapters of your life where I just go, you had to have had some curveballs or some moments of going, oh my gosh, what am I doing? And the 2 things I want to talk about is you being a series regular on Without a Trace, but then also getting to work with Clint Eastwood on American Sniper as well. And I know that I think that you'd also done, you did that show with John Goodman as well.
Yeah.
But maybe things that you can talk about with moments where you were a series regular on something and just kind of going, holy smokes, there's a lot riding here on my performance or what I'm going through.
Yeah, there is. But I think you have to be careful in ever assuming that the entire thing rests on your shoulders.
Mm-hmm.
There's so much that goes into, putting a project together from, when I'm on the directing side, I love the collaboration with, the department heads, and we're all getting together for production meetings and talking about ideas. And, I have a certain vision that I have for the movie or the television episode, and then getting their ideas and just collaborating to tell the best story we can, and to give, the network or the studio the best film or episode you can.
Right.
And it's interesting. I remember the first time I was a series regular was I had done a pilot in North Carolina for CBS, and I think I was like an 8th lead or 9th lead on this ensemble cast, and it looked like it wasn't going to go anywhere. It probably wasn't going to get picked up. And my agent sent me into audition in second position. And what that means is if you're already obligated to another series, you can't audition for another show. That they need to know that you're already obligated to something else. But because the show, it was uncertain, there was this role that I was right for, and it was an ABC show. And I ended up going in, and the executive producer, Gil Grant, was like, hey, I want this guy for the role, me. Is there a way we can work it out? And I called the producers, they're good friends of mine from the other show, and said, would you consider releasing me from the show? Because I have an opportunity to be a lead in the show, maybe my first network lead. And they gave me their blessing, but then I had to wait for Jeff Sagansky, who was at the Lillehammer Olympics. And remember, back then, there's no emails and all that stuff. We just had to wait till he was in connectivity.
Oh,
so I'm in my apartment, literally on my knees praying, like going, God, just help Sagansky get the message. And it came down to the wire, and thankful to him, he released me from the show, and I went and did this pilot, and it got picked up, and I came and shot that here in Bend, Oregon. It's my first series as a lead, and it just opened a lot of doors. And it didn't live long. It was over after, I think they canceled after 6 episodes, and then we did 13 episodes. But it was a life changer for me. And another story I'll tell you real quick. The John Goodman show, Glenn Gordon Caron, who created Moonlighting, created this show, and it was just an awesome show. It's called Now and Again.
Yes.
And
which you can see. I want to make sure that you get in residuals, but I just want to let people know, if you look for it on YouTube, you can actually find the series.
Yeah, it's such a cool show. And Glenn is an amazing writer. He's one of the best writers I've ever worked with. And he's an excellent director, and it's just a cool dude. And it was with Dennis Haysbert, All-State guy, and President of the United States, and all those cool things that Dennis has done.
That's right.
And we had a great time. But it was, it was being touted as the show of the millennium, because it was 2000 when we were doing it. And so everybody was making a big deal about this show. And I remember I was with my family in New York, and we had just gone to see a Broadway show. And I think we went to see Andrew Lloyd Webber show, and I don't remember what it was. And we came out of the theater on Broadway, and we were down in Times Square. And my wife and I looked up, and we just had our little daughter with us, who was probably a year and a half. And we looked up, and here's this massive billboard, with my face on this in Times Square, and buses going by with my, face on the side of the bus. And, and the thing is that you can't take it too serious. And we just kind of would laugh about it. And the funniest part about the whole thing is that the show got canceled after 1 season. And I remember telling my wife, I go, hey, let's stay in New York for a while and see if we can make a go of it here. And my agent sent me out for this like small little indie film, like somewhere down in the meatpacking district. And the thing about New York and the city, when it gets windy, it gets really windy. And you add rain on top of it, it's a mess. So I go down for this audition for this movie, and I'm on the subway, and I get off at the wrong stop. Mm-hmm. And I come up, and I'm in my suit, and my hair is done for this audition. And I come up, and the wind and the rain is blowing sideways, and my umbrella breaks, and I'm just getting drenched. And I realize I'm at the wrong stop, and I go back into the subway and get to the next stop. I make it to the audition. I'm like 20 minutes late. I'm so sorry. I just, and I'm just a mess.
Yeah.
And I walked out of there, and I actually just said, thank you, God, for keeping me humble. It was just one of those moments where it's like, the billboards were gone, the show was canceled, everything's down, no more buses. And it just reminds you that it's not about that stuff.
No.
It's just about doing the work, enjoying the journey, and just loving what you do, no matter if you're getting, drenched in rain or you got your face on the side of a bus. You just got to enjoy it all, So
I'll tell you, man, I've told this story. I've told this story to Polly's Picnic. It's a classic thing. I did a series of Dodge commercials, and I remember I was working at Disney, and it was the first time I'd hit some big money.
Yeah.
And I remember I went over to, this story, Paul, but
Circle K.
I went Arco. Yeah. I went to an Arco gas station and a lady behind the thing just said, Kevin. And I was so full of myself. I said, yes, I'm from the Dodge commercials. And she says, no, Kevin. And I'm wearing my Disney ID with my name on it. And it was just a moment of going, who do you think you are? Like, they put credits at the end of Dodge commercials, right? So they know who you were, or that this lady would know who. Oh, it was ridiculous. I was, but you have, you have to have these moments where you go, get it together, man.
You do. It's yeah. I mean, we're very fortunate to work in this business, and I know so many people, want to be able to work in it.
Yeah.
And it's not easy. I mean, you gotta work, you gotta grind, you gotta work hard and put the time in.
Just want to give you a shout out here. Mary Ann says, Eric loved you in the series McKenna. And of course, you're getting a couple of people in here that absolutely adored you in Nashville. So
yeah, McKenna was here, and like I said,
what was that show about? What was McKenna about?
So McKenna, I was looking for that. There's a picture I have.
Picture, right?
Actually, but McKenna, Chad Everett, who's no longer with us, he played my dad, and we were a family of outfitters, outdoor outfitters. And so it was kind of like Fantasy Island, but in the mountains. So people would come with their problems, and then we'd help them solve their problems. So we'd help with marriages that were falling apart, and we'd take people out in the woods and leave them out there. There was this great actor who came on the show. I'm sorry, I forget his name right now, but he came on. And he played a guy with one leg, and I take him up a rock climbing. We rock climb up this mountain, and I got to work with some great directors like Kenny Ortega and Christopher Tabori, Eric Lonaville. And those were in the early days, and it was just a cool deal working with Chad. And I love the outdoors. I mean, it's one of the reasons I live where I live is, river rafting, rock climbing. I enjoy all that stuff. So we were here. I was doing a show about it. So that was fun. But McKenna was great. And Nashville was awesome. I got to work with Chip Eston. And the whole cast, it was an awesome group of young actors who really, for a lot of them, it was their first shot, and they were so grateful, and that's the thing. I try to remind young actors that get like their first big break. I'm like, you don't let this go to your head, try to, if you can, just be grateful, because, we're so lucky. We're so fortunate to be doing what we're doing.
I'll tell you what put a huge smile on my face. I was just thinking about this right now. Our friend Chip Eston, who's on the show, he would come through and they did a Nashville Live in Concert. And I went down to I don't know where it was, a Staples. Where the heck was it? It was in the Microsoft Theater or whatever that is.
Nokia
Theater, man. I was in the audience there. They introduced you. Chip introduced you. Here's Teddy Conrad all the way from the penitentiary coming out. It was such a huge blast to see up on stage. Just going, I know these guys. This is crazy.
Chip's an awesome guy. You got to get him on your show.
We'll get him on. Yeah. Listen, man, Chip has done me a number of favors, and I've been putting it off because I know he gets inundated with stuff, but God willing, we'll have him here on the show too. And of course, we're West Coast and he's East Coast, but anyway, and that's how I met all of you guys through that stuff. Corey Pollard as well too. So all those mutual connections.
Yeah.
Speaking of working with great directors, it was probably short and sweet, but your experience working with Clint Eastwood on American Sniper.
So the story about Clint is one I've always been, like so many people, such a huge fan of Clint. Always, I love his filmmaking. I almost appreciated his filmmaking more than his acting. I mean, I think he's a great actor, but he's got such an awesome eye for the nonverbals. There's this one scene I think it's called The Changeling with Angelina Jolie, and there's this scene where this kid escapes from this serial killer, and he gets to the police station. And the cop goes, "All right, kid, tell me your story," right? And he lights up a cigarette. The cop does, and he takes a hit off the cigarette and he puts it down, and Clint puts the camera where the hand comes into frame with the cigarette, and it had just been lit. And then he pushes in on the kid's face telling the story. And then you go into this flashback and the kid tells the story. And when he comes out of this riveting story of how he escaped this place, the camera comes back into focus on the cigarette, and it's one giant ash. And the cigarette, because the cop never moved his hand. He was so riveted by the kid's story. And you go, that's Clint's, that's what, Clint can tell so much with just that shot, and I love that about him. And always is inspired by him as a director. But anyway, that way I met Clint we were at the Golden Globes, because when I was on Without a Trace, we were nominated as a ensemble cast. And so what's fun about the Golden Globes is they bring everybody together. So it's actors from movies. So movie stars are there, and then there's TV. Yeah. And it was just so cool to see like Charlize Theron and Sean Penn and all these people, like they just inspire you, And Clint was there because he was nominated for Mystic River. And my wife, I had a couple glasses of wine, I think. And my wife goes, I turned to my wife and I go, God, I'd love to meet Clint Eastwood. And she said, why not? And I said, I mean, really? And she goes, when are you going to ever get a chance to meet Clint Eastwood? Yeah. And I said, all right. She goes, come on, let's go. So everybody's leaving, the theater or wherever they held the Golden Globes. I don't remember right now. And he was talking to somebody, and his wife, Dina, was with him. And we walked up there, and we were standing there behind him, and he kind of turned around and gave me that Clint stare that is so intimidating. Just like, who's this? He turned around and gave me one of these like squinty eyes. And then Dina noticed it, and she started talking to Carrie and I. And then at a certain point, she said, hey, Clint, this is Eric and Carrie Close. And he wants to ask you a couple questions about directing. And we just started talking, and I asked him some questions, and we talked for probably 15, 20 minutes. Wow. And that was the beginning, because then I got invited to play in the AT&T tennis golf tournament at Pebble Beach, and he's the chairman of the Monterey Peninsula Foundation. Mm-hmm. And so we just started to kind of become acquaintances, and I played golf with him, and we went to dinner, and just kind of became more acquaintances over through golf and that stuff. And I never, for the 10 years that I knew Clint, never asked him if I could work for him. Mm-hmm. And so this role in American Sniper came up while I was working on Nashville, and my agent said, hey, I know you're going to see Clint next week when you go play the tournament. Why don't you ask him about the movie? And I go, nah, I just don't feel right about it. Why don't you guys just call casting and say, Clint and Eric know each other, and, he'd love to work with him. And so my brother took my phone, not this phone, but my other iPhone, and I was in Nashville, and he put me on tape in his kitchen for this role. And the next thing I know, I'm on a plane going to Morocco, and I'm going to work with Clint on American Sniper, and Bradley Cooper, who's an awesome dude and so cool and down to earth and incredibly talented. Yeah. If you saw Star is Born, you know how talented the guy is. Mm-hmm. And getting to work with Clint was just, and I had been on the set of, it was at Warner Brothers. I went on the set while I was working on Without Trace. I got to go sit on the set of I think it was Letters from Iwo Jima. Mm-hmm. And what was because I wanted to observe him, watch him directing. And so I was there, and the whole time I was sitting by Video Village. He was on set because he has a little like tortoiseshell kind of screen. I like to use this now when I'm directing too. Right. And he just sits next to the camera on set and just gives direction in there. And it was really cool just to have the headphones on and just be listening to him direct, because I didn't get to go on set and actually watch it. But when I was on American Sniper, the days I wasn't working, I would go and hang out on set and just watch him direct. And, I was really grateful to Bob Lorenz for letting me do that. And Clint, obviously gave me permission to do it. So the days I wasn't acting, I was just down there soaking it up. And he's got a great sense of humor. He's actually quite funny and a very dry sense of humor, but he's the coolest dude there is. I mean, think about his career. This guy he writes the scores for his movies. He acts and he directs in them. He produces them. I mean, the guy he's prolific. I think probably the most successful person ever in Hollywood. Yeah. Across the board.
Yeah.
Go for it, Paul.
I got two things real quick. Okay. Just rewinding a little bit. Do you think, and this might be a lesson, it might not, but do you think that if you hadn't stayed after the Golden Globes and had that conversation with him, that you would have formed the relationship at the golf tournament and the rest would have happened down the line?
I don't know, because when I saw him again at the Pebble Beach tournament, I went up. He was talking to Craig T. Nelson, and I went up and kind of I was playing in the tournament, so was Craig. So I felt like I had a little bit of a sort of an in to be able to say, hey, how you doing? So I went up and said, hey, Clint, we met at the Golden Globes, and hey, how's it going? Congratulations playing in the tournament. So I don't know. I mean, you make these choices in life and you don't know where it's going to go. But I think the real lesson that, and I try to tell people this, is that it's like the same thing with Tom Cruise or whoever. I think, remember, we're all just people. We're just, I know that there's people that Clint probably wants to meet in the industry, or so does Meryl Streep. Probably goes, oh, I really want to go meet Julianne Moore if they hadn't met before. I really like her work. And we all kind of inspire each other. And I think the lesson really for what I try to tell people is don't be afraid of that kind of stuff. I mean, you don't want to stalk somebody when they're like having dinner at a restaurant, go up and like, that's not cool. But we were in a setting, we're in the industry, and I felt it was appropriate at that time to go up and say something to him. But things happen for a reason. And I was nervous. I wanted to meet him, but
I love
does that answer your question? I mean, I don't know. Is that
I mean, it kind of answered like the main thing I wanted to ask you was like that whole thing of knowing the right place and time is one thing, but also then having the courage to just go. You said it perfectly. They're people. Like, go connect with them, and if you have something that you want to talk to them about, that's not just, hi, I'm a huge fan, but like, can you teach me, or like, give me some advice about this? I think that's the best way to approach that sort of a situation where someone could be a mentor to you, or could help you open doors somewhere down the line. If you have the courage to approach it from a standpoint of not, hey, I'm a stalker, but can you like, what advice would you give me if I want to achieve this? Like, I think people are a lot more apt to connect with you, and you can build relationships from there.
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree. And I think you just have to be, I mean, you kind of got to gauge the situation, but don't be afraid. And I always tell people, if you have a dream or a goal, and you know that there's someone who can either give you advice or maybe able to help you in some way, you should ask. I think a lot of people are afraid to ask because they are anticipating the no. I mean, actors, we get no's more than we get yeses. So do, I mean, a lot of people, and you're in an industry where you're depending on someone else to like what you do. And you can get no's for the most random reasons. You could be, your hair is you're the wrong height. I mean, now when you do auditions, and maybe it's always been this way, but it seems like more now, they go, how tall are you? And where are you based? And things like that. And it's because I think they're factoring everything in. Well, if he's 5'11" and she's 5'2", that's not probably going to work, And I know they always make exceptions, but there's a lot of random things that don't have anything to do with your talent that could keep you from, and you just can't be discouraged. You got to keep it going, just keep plugging away. I mean, even Clint Eastwood told me that night at the Golden Globes that there was a time where he really couldn't get work after Rawhide.
Yep.
And then he ended up doing those Westerns, and
that's right.
That changed his life. He could have said, I don't want to go to Italy. I don't want to go to Italy and do Westerns. But it was more about looking at it and him going, yeah, maybe I'm gonna learn something.
And even that transition that he made in his career. I mean, talk about going and doing the spaghetti Westerns, but then even doing the transition of going, hey, I need to learn how to start directing, going back to play Misty for me and all this stuff, just like going like, I need to change. I need to adapt. I need to figure out what this is and what's
do we have time for me to tell you a quick story about playing Misty?
Yes, you got all the time in the world. Go for it.
So I asked him a question that night and said, how did you get started directing? This is what I heard. And he said, no, that's not the right story. So okay. I said, oh, okay. Cause you hear lore, people tell you stories. Oh, this is how so-and-so got their break. Anyway, he had told me that when he went to do the spaghetti Westerns, obviously that changed his life. And he came back and he had a 3-picture deal with Universal. I think Lou Wasserman was the guy at the time who was running Universal. And the deal was that Clint had to do 2 of their movies, but part of his deal was that he got to pick the 3rd movie and he got to direct it. And so that was So, which was very smart because he knew that that would open that door for him.
Yes.
And so he had a friend, I don't remember her name. You can look it up on IMDb, who she had written a script and they were friends, and he wanted to direct her script. She wanted him to direct the script because she knew they were young, and they were saying, he's like, I want to direct. And she's like, well, maybe you can direct this movie. And he goes, yeah, I want to direct that movie. And he goes, if I ever can do it, I'll direct your movie. Well, things didn't go the way they had planned. He couldn't get work. And so she came to Clint during that season when he was having a hard time finding work. And she says, I have a chance to sell my script.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, you got to go for it. I mean, if you have an opportunity, you want to be a writer, you got to sell your script. And so she sold her script.
Yeah.
He went to Italy, did his movies, became a star, came back, had a 3-picture deal. And when they got to the movie, he had already done the other 2 movies. He goes, okay, now's my chance to direct. They said, okay, well, here's some movies we have for you to direct. And he goes, no, I'm going to send my assistant. And he sent his assistant over to the Universal script room where they shelve all these scripts. Yeah. And he goes, there's this script I'm looking for. Go grab it. They brought it off the shelf and brought it back. And it was the script that Universal bought from his friend, which was Play Misty for him.
Get out of here. Get out of here.
Oh, I got goosebumps. That's crazy.
Yeah.
For anybody that's listening to this, okay,
Mm-hmm.
if you have not seen Play Misty for Me, see that movie. That movie is great and terrifying and scary. And that was his directorial debut.
Yeah,
that was his friend's script.
Yep. Directorial debut. They shot it in Pebble Beach there on 17 Mile Drive. The house is still there. And the thing what I loved about that story, and I was riveted, just like you guys, I had goosebumps because I'm standing there, listening to this from a guy I really admire, that his loyalty to a friend.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things in our business that's unfortunate is you don't always get that loyalty.
Yeah.
And people will back you and they'll go to bat for you when things are good, but when things are tough, who you really can rely on are the people they'll stick with you during the tough times. And when you're down and you're not, things aren't like, you're not on the side of a bus.
Yes.
Those people, and they don't make excuses. They just go, I still believe in you. And he did that. And I always was like, that's pretty awesome. And everybody I've ever worked with that has worked with him said, man, he's been so loyal to me. He always, gave me my shot. And so he has a great reputation for that reason.
So here's the interesting transition for us in this.
Yeah.
And don't worry, Paul, I'm going to have a fun little fact for you at the end of this as well. But here's the deal. I know. Paul's like, what's going to go on? Here's the deal, Eric. This goes back to a conversation that Eric and I were having about a week ago that was off mic on this. We talk about the transitions and the challenges that we run into in our career, and the stuff that you've even talked about tonight. It so applies even right now, not just with you, but with me, but with anybody else that's listening, is that I think, especially in this career, we can get into if you're making your living as a creative and you seem to be in a lane and you seem like things are kind of going along, and then things can jam up, right? Like things don't work out the way that they work out. And all of a sudden we can feel like, like that's it. It's over, or I'm finished. I've had these experiences in my life. And I think that the biggest lesson with this, even listening to Clint Eastwood's stories, but knowing the stuff that I'm sort of navigating in my own life, I know that Paul's navigating, I'm sure that you're navigating too, is realizing just because things are changing in the moment doesn't mean that stuff is over. It means literally that we are in the middle of this pivot and change. And I was talking to Eric beforehand, commercials were a big money maker for me, 15 years ago. That was how I was making a lot of my money doing this. And guess what? The marketplace has changed, right? The marketplace changes where it's not all union commercials, or they want different types of people there in the commercials. And I have no control over that. But what that doesn't mean is to go, oh, well, then I'm worthless, or I don't have any value. Instead, it's a moment of going, okay, well, how do I change and pivot and think of another way that I can use my ability, skills, and talent? We're literally talking in this same episode about how 20 years ago you had to run around to get stuff on VHS tapes and pay an editor $300 or $400 to get your reel together. Where now it's something that you can do. Oh, I'll just do a screen capture and let me just edit it on iMovie, and then boom, I've got my reel, right? Yeah. So like things change and pivot all the time. And Eric, I guess I'm saying this out loud to you. You know, you already have this spirit that's been in you, right? Even as you're talking about the Tom Cruise thing that you had, where you just go, I'm just going to figure this out, right? I'm just going to ask and just go do this. And you've been doing a bit of that yourself with your directing and with the other stuff that you're doing, right? Is any of this resonating, or do you want to speak to this, or
it's totally resonating? And, you know, I had mentioned that, you know, when I was first starting out in the business, I wanted to tell stories. I wanted to direct, and, you know, and I never gave up on that dream. And when I was on McKenna, I had mentioned the director, Christopher Tabori, and I would tell every director, I mean, I would sit in Video Village and just soak it up. I wanted to, you know, while I was acting, and I was busy acting because I was the lead in the show, but whenever I had time, I just wanted to be on set. And I told Chris that I had aspirations to direct. And so we were doing this episode. I told you about the guy with the hurt leg, and they had lost his leg, and I was helping him rock climb. Well, I'm a rock climber. So Christopher said to me, listen, I can't legally let you direct any stuff on this episode because there's union rules and everything. He goes, but I'll tell you what, I hope I don't get Chris. Well, it was so long ago. I think
you're not going to get busted. Now. You're fine.
I think he's safe now. But so Christopher said, go home tonight and write out 100 shots that you think you would want to do for second unit for this episode, for all the rock climbing and the horse riding footage. Because Chad, while I was taking this guy rock climbing, Everett was taking this other couple in like the B storyline, and they were horseback riding or whatever. So I went home and I wrote out every shot I could think of. Came back the next morning, showed it to Chris at breakfast. You know, we came in for breakfast, and it was just right over here on the road, like a quarter of a mile from our house here. And Christopher says, okay, I'm going to give you one camera, a boom operator, and an assistant. And I want you to take Chad Everett, who's the lead of the show, and then this other guy, and go shoot all this, as much as you can cover on this list. Here's the shots I think are the most important. And then you can go, if you have time, get these. So I went out and shot second unit, which was technically first unit because I had lead actor in the show. That's when you're working with the principal cast. It really is, you're shooting first unit, although I had the skeleton crew. So I did that. And that was like kind of, I got my first little taste of directing. And then the show was over, and every series that I was ever on, I always went to the showrunner right in the beginning when the show got picked up. I said, hey, listen, if this show runs for a while, if we get into a second, third season or whatever, I really want to direct. I'm just telling you that in advance. So it's not like me being a bored actor. I really just wanted to do that as well. And every showrunner said, I will gladly help you out if we can get to a second, third season, but first season is just not going to happen. Yeah. And I was kind of, you know, the guy who would get into a series and it would go for a year and then it would get canceled. And so I was like, well, now maybe I'll direct eventually. And then Without a Trace came along, and Without a Trace was a success. I mean, it was a hit. And I told, sorry, I'm drawing a blank right now. Hank Steinberg, I told Hank, I said, hey, Hank, same thing. I want to direct. And so it took me 5 seasons. And this is a story I tell often. The show is owned by Jerry Bruckheimer. So Jerry Bruckheimer's, company was the production company, and then it was Warner Brothers Television, and we aired on CBS. Yep. And Jonathan Littman runs Jerry's television division. And so I just told these guys every season, this is what I want to do. This is what I want to do. And Jonathan said, look, Jerry doesn't allow actors to direct on his shows. And at the time, Bruckheimer Television had 7 shows on TV.
Oh, yeah.
CSI, Cold Case, Without a Trace, The Amazing Race, maybe CSI Miami, and then one other show. Yep. So they were killing it. Mm-hmm. And so Jonathan said, it's precedent. Jerry won't approve it. He wants film directors and people that, and I just said to him, I said, well, listen, I appreciate that, but I'm going to keep trying.
Yeah.
I'm not going to give up. And no disrespect to you because you're my friend and I work for you, but I'm going to keep trying. Yeah. And I kept and so I went all out in season 4. I mean, all season, if I wrapped at 10 o'clock at night, I was there till 2 o'clock in the morning, shadowing directors, going to the editing room. And, I was a series regular, and anytime I had free, I was soaking up everything I could and telling, so they knew that I was serious. It was like, this guy's not just saying I want to direct and then going home and screwing around. It was like, he is here and he's serious. The last person I needed to get approval from was Anthony LaPaglia, who was our lead actor.
That's right.
And at the end of season 4, we were down at this hospital in Compton. It was the last episode, last day of shooting of the season. And Anthony called me over to his trailer. He goes, "Hey, come here." I went over and he goes, "I've been watching you this season and you got my back. I got your back."
Wow.
And so he went in and told the executive producer, he says, "I think you should give Eric a shot. And I know you got this precedent, but I think you should give him a shot." And season 5, I came back and they said, "You're directing episode 11." Nice. So I ended up being the first actor in all of Jerry's shows that got the shot. And the other thing that was really cool is Jan Nash and Greg Walker were the 2 showrunners. They came to me and we sat down in the writer's room and they said, "We don't really have a story broken for episode 11 yet. Is there anything you want to do? Do you have any ideas?" And I said, "Yeah, actually I do have an idea." And I pitched them an idea about this thing, and because we used to live in Brentwood and there's a farmer's market there. And I pitched this idea about a kid going missing in the farmer's market and all this. And they go, "Okay, we're going to run with it." And then they made it, they took it and they created this really cool story, and I got to direct it. After the episode aired, it had great numbers. Jerry called me. I was at the Getty Museum with my family, and the phone rings and it's his secretary. And she says, "Hey, I have Jerry Bruckheimer wants to talk to you." And I'm like, "Oh my gosh, what's going to happen?" And Jerry comes on and says, he's very quiet, he's a soft-spoken guy. And he said, "Hey, you did a great job. Hope you direct more for us. And, hope you want to do that." And I said, "Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you for giving me the shot." And then that opened the door, and I directed 4 more before the series ended. Then we had that writer's strike that kind of took one. So I was supposed to have 5 and got to do 4 more episodes, and it was really fun. And it opened the door because then Marianne Jean-Baptiste directed, John Finn, who was working on Cold Case, directed, and it kind of broke that ceiling.
Yes.
And it opened the door for other people to have a shot. And it wasn't like every actor was directing, but there are some actors who really wanted to do it and really were passionate about it. So
that's
cool.
Amazing, man.
That was a great story.
So cool.
Incredible story. Congratulations.
Yeah. Here's the fun fact, Paul. You're also looking at a man who's been involved in a couple of Hallmark movies and actually directed Hallmark movies.
Oh, I'm aware.
Paul, I hear you're a fan of Hallmark.
Big Hallmark movie fan. Yeah.
Good.
Well, there's one of them.
I don't know what Without a Trace is, but I know what the Hallmark movie.
You're out of your mind. It's the interesting thing, Eric, on one of those Hallmark movies, you got to do something that was also kind of groundbreaking, right? Like had never been done before, right? With the wasn't it with the Presley estate? Am I wrong about that? Or?
Yeah, we got to shoot at Elvis's house at Graceland,
which had never been done for.
No, well, okay. Harvey Keitel did a movie, and it was called Road to Graceland, maybe, or
okay.
I think that was what it was called. And what they ended up doing is I think the only thing they did is they took one camera into the mansion and they let Harvey stand on the stairwell and they shot him standing on the stairwell doing a couple lines, but that was it.
Yeah.
We got to shoot all through, and I did 3 movies there, and I got to shoot all over Elvis's home. And we were grateful. We said, "Elvis, thank you for letting us be here." We had some crazy nights where in the South you get these insane thunderstorms. Mm-hmm. And we all know when you're shooting, you've got 12 hours and you better get it done, and you just can't have those delays.
Yeah.
And there were nights where we were delayed 2 hours because of lightning storms and stuff like that. But I remember nights where we thought, "Oh, we're toast. this storm that you could just see it on the radar, these storms coming that we're I don't know if we're going to get to shoot the rest of the night, and we have all night work. And all of a sudden the storm would come over the Mississippi and just split around the city. And then we would shoot all night. And it's like, thank you, God. Elvis, is you with the Lord up there? Thank you. And it was pretty awesome just being able to be there. And I remember one night they broke out they broke out some vino that Elvis had in his like cellar or something. I don't know what it was. And it was just cool. We had a little glass of wine in his house and just toasted. And it was a neat experience. And I was, I'll be forever grateful to have had that experience, being at Graceland. I was always an Elvis fan. My parents were actually going to take me to see him in concert, and then he unfortunately passed away at a very young age. So
crazy, man. Let me ask you this. What's it look like for you right now when you look at what the future is? What's the challenges? What's the hopes that you have for yourself right now? And I would say also with that, what would you also tell someone that's trying to get into this, or maybe somebody that's in a low part with their creative career and that they're looking to do a comeback or whatever? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, one thing I can say is that we all face valleys. We all have, whatever vocation you're in, this has been a tough time. I have friends who've lost parents to COVID, and people have been sick, and people are out of work, and it's been a challenging time. I know for me, my faith has kept me strong. I think I hang on to that, and I don't really put my faith in my job or my work. I think those are important things, but those don't complete me. I think your friendships that you have and your family are so important during times like this. But I just try and say, just try to hang in there, and tell people when you're struggling. Tell people if you're discouraged. I think a lot of times we don't want to tell anybody because we think, oh, they're going to think I'm complaining, or, and like full disclosure, I reached out to Kevin the other day and just had a chat about some of the, frustrations or discouragements I've had, and just that, I'm fortunate to have a friendship like I do with Kevin. We're in the same business. We get it. We can share those challenges and go, yeah, man, I get it. And it just helps just to talk about it. So I think that's important. And I also think, for those people starting out and wanting to be in this business, I think I heard a guy on YouTube the other day who was talking about how you have to remember that you have to be willing to pay your dues. You have to be willing to work for free, be willing to run coffee, do things that, maybe other people aren't willing to do. You can't come out of film school and think you're going to suddenly be the next, Zemeckis or Spielberg or Lucas. I mean, it's, that's one in a million that happens, and then you got to back it up. But I think you got to just come out, because I think what happens is if you could just get your foot in the door, and if you're running paper, if you're like running coffee or whatever it is, you're going to get a chance to share what your passion is. And there's going to be somebody who's going to go, hey, I want to introduce you to somebody. And then, like for writers, every writer wants to get into a writer's room and be a writer's assistant. And really what you're doing is you're running coffee. And then when you're free time, you're writing spec scripts. And then eventually one of the writers on the team or the showrunner is going to go, hey, let me read your script. And then they're going to go, I like your writing. Hey, let's get you on the team. And the next thing you know, you're breaking a story. And, that could take 10 years. Yeah. And you have to be willing. And I remember, Tom Cruise, that was one of the things he said. He goes, I gave myself 10 years. And if I didn't get one job after 10 years, like nothing happened, and I was just like, no sign that I was supposed to be doing this, then I would probably in my early 30s, I think he was in his 20s at the time, I would do something else. Because what he started out when he was like 18. Yeah. So, he had a goal, but he also said, one day I'll have a backup if I don't make it, but he went all out, and look, he's fortunate. He succeeded. But I think that it's important to have a plan, have some sort of plan, but set your goals and say, but you got to hold on to those goals somewhat loosely. You know what I'm saying? And,
right.
And I kind of goals like, I really want to do a movie, or I really want to get on a series one day and just be a supporting role. And then maybe one day I'll get a series regular, or, whatever. But I think you have to be willing to pay your dues.
Yeah.
And again, like I said earlier tonight, I say, don't be afraid to ask and tell people what you want to do. Tell them what your goals are.
Yeah.
And say, this is what I really want to do. I want to be in the camera department. That's really what I'm doing. And my ultimate goal is I want to be a DP, but I'm willing to be, some of the DPs I worked with recently, they started out as camera assistants.
Yeah. And
they became an operator. And then eventually someone said, okay, you're going to get this shot and you're going to be the DP, the director of photography. So I don't know if that answers that question.
It absolutely does. And I think more than anything else is I think the thing that I'm walking away from with this episode too, Eric, is realizing that just because, we've had things happen, we run into these moments of our life where we've had things happen, and fortunate things happen, have breaks happen for ourselves. It doesn't mean that it's not going to happen again. Right. That I think that sometimes we have to go back and reset. I found myself during this season going, hold on, man, you've been here before. You're just at a different stage of the game, and it's just looking a little bit different, but you've been here. And I think even the things that you were just talking about earlier in this, with asking the questions with Tom Cruise, or the conversations, or the story that you told with Jerry Bruckheimer, man, like this has happened for you again and again. And I can look back at stuff that's happened for me again and again and go, oh yeah. How many times have I had to take a look back and go, because I do this all the time, right? Transparent with my faith that I'm on the show. Like I go, well, that's it. I've blown it. And like every single time I look back, and it's like, God provides, God provides, God provides. There's things that happen, opportunities happen, things happen. You're growing, you're strengthening. He's causing you to change into what he needs you to be. And so I think that that's just a big takeaway for me.
Say my grace is sufficient for you.
That's it.
And that's so important. And I know that is definitely, because these things in life, while they're important, they're not going to completely fulfill you permanently, but I think that the landscape has changed, and I think in a good way. Doesn't always bode well for everybody, because when things change, like you said, and the climate changes, but there's a lot of people out there who are really grateful that the climate has changed in the last few years, because it's opened a lot more doors for people that were getting a lot of doors closed in their faces.
Yeah.
And that doesn't necessarily, like I said, it doesn't necessarily work out well for everybody, because someone's going to get a door closed in their face. But it's one of those things where, if Bryan Cranston said that when he just stopped worrying about what people thought about him in auditions and just went and did the work, things started to happen, and I think you just have to do that. You're going to get discouraged. I was at an event once, and I was talking to an actor who, I won't say his name, but he's doing really well right now and just killing it in television. And he told me, he said, I asked him, I said, "Have you ever had any like rough times, or, where work was kind of tight?" And he says, "Eric, I can't tell you how many times I turned to my wife and said, I think we're going to have to sell the house."
Yeah. Yeah.
And now I don't think he's gonna have to worry about selling the house anymore, but he's in his 60s, and this dude is killing it, but he's been through it. And you have to love it. You have to love what you do. And everybody, and here's the other thing. I was going to say this earlier. The thing you have to ask yourself is, why not me? Mm-hmm. Do you know what I mean? It's like, if you have an idea, you have a creative idea, go for it. Sometimes we can be our worst enemies. We'll go, oh, people are going to think it's lame, or maybe my idea is not that good. I mean, I can't sing as well as them, or whatever it is, or whatever. Instead, go for it. And people will give you constructive criticism, but it's like, why not you? If you want to direct, why not? If you want to dance, why not you? Go for it, And don't let people don't let people discourage you, because people will, because there are people out there also, they get jealous and they want to pull you down, and just don't give them time.
I love it. Yeah. I love it. Paul, parting thoughts with you.
I love like so much of what you said tonight. Thank you again for being with us. Two of the takeaways that I just want to highlight are like the story about you wanting to direct and doing everything you could in your free time to put yourself in the position where you could. You were talking about being on American Sniper, and you're done with the day, but you go back and you watch one of the greats of all time do it and just soaking it in. And I think that my acting coach, when I was coming up like I ever got up, but he used to say that like people who feel like they're giving 100% are usually giving about 85 or 90, but some people out there are, and you were one of those people who was just like, you're wrapped for the day, you're cut, you could go back to your room and relax, have a glass of vino, but you're there on set soaking it in, learning from the best. And like you didn't have to be, but you were. And then the second thing, which just led to the director door opening up, was just like, and you just said it again, tell people what it is that you want. And anybody, Kevin always talks about it's a gradual you're climbing and helping other people. Like anybody who works with you and knows what's really in your heart and what you really want to do will remember that, and doors will not open if you don't speak the words and make it known. We've talked a lot about like the projects that have kickstarted, and that is at the core of kickstarting any project or starting any project, is just like asking people for help, telling people what your vision is and saying, this is what I want to do. Will you help me? I think there's so much of that in any successful person's career, whether it's in arts or business or anything. Just make known what you want, put it out into the universe and see what God does with it. And so good. And thank you so much for being on the show tonight.
Amen, man.
I really love being here tonight. This has been so much fun. I feel like we're just getting warmed up.
I know, right?
We've eventually, I keep saying that, we've eventually got to get up to like Joe Rogan hours, where it's like 3 hours on it. We're not there yet.
Man, come on. Bring it.
So we're not there. Eric, it has been a blast, buddy. Thank you so much, brother, for being on the show. Anything that we can point people towards to find you, or stuff that's coming up that you want to let people be aware of?
Yeah, I mean, I'm gonna go do a movie in Georgia in April. Hoping that with everything that's going on, it seems like people are being able to do it. We're finding we're understanding how to navigate this time better. So as of now, I'm gonna go do that, which I'm excited about. And the movie involves some golf, so I get to play golf, which is one of my great passions. Nice. I'm excited about that. And one of the guys that wrote the book that the movie or the screenplay is based on is a guy I met 30 years ago, and so I haven't seen him in 30 years, so it's gonna be kind of cool to run into him again. And then and then we'll just kind of see what else is coming. Like I said, I'm in the stage of trying to raise some money for a feature that my wife and I wrote, and it's a passion project. That's something we've been pursuing for a long time. I was getting discouraged, and then I heard that the Queen's Gambit took 30 years to make, to finally get to the screen. 30 years. Wow. And so that's a good thing. Don't be discouraged. I mean, I think people give up and they're like, oh, because I think people were just saying, who wants to see a show about chess?
Yeah.
Boring. No, it's not. They made chess. They did for chess what that bottle. What was that movie with Paul Giamatti where they
Sideways. I think
Sideways. Yeah, Sideways did for the wine country. Queen's Gambit did for chess. Chess is actually a cool game. I love it. So anyway, don't give up, guys. Just I tell people, just keep going for it.
Fantastic.
This is a fun business, and the best part, I have to say, the best part about it all is you get to work with other people and you meet the coolest, most interesting people from all kinds of walks of life. I mean, you hear so many. If you did a story just about the lives of the people in our business, I mean, it's incredible, the people that you meet, and you find out they did other things. Like you said, they were an attorney and they got bored with being an attorney, and they went and said, I like to write stories. I want to write screenplays or books or whatever. And so,
love it.
It's pretty cool. I think keep going.
It's an amazing thing. Well, it's amazing that we get to have people like you on the show to be able to tell your story. So Eric Close, thank you so much for being on the show. Thank you so much to everybody that's listening to the show. Plenty of ways that you can support us. Hey, Paul, what's one of the ways that people can support us?
How about if you enjoyed the show and you would give it a positive review to a friend with your mouth? You can do it with your fingers too on Apple Podcasts. Leave us a positive review. Helps people who like this kind of show find us.
Yes, for example, and if you give us a positive review on iTunes, we're going to read your review, just like Amy Ululani.
Yes.
Do you know Amy at all or no?
Yeah, I don't know Amy. Thank you.
Well, here's what she said. Great for all creatives. I love the authenticity with which hosts Kevin and Paul share. The experience and wisdom from both of them and the variety of wonderful guests they have on each week is such a gift to listeners. If you're a creative of any kind, this podcast is worth hitting subscribe. There's always something great to be learned from each episode, and it keeps me moving forward. I'm grateful for the ways it has both challenged and encouraged me in my own personal creative journey. Thank you so much, Amy, for the kind words.
Thank you. Awesome. Amy was the production whip cracker on The Haunted Man, my feature.
Well, we really appreciate it. And before I forget, happy birthday to Sandra Carganilla, Paul's mom. She is amazing.
Hey,
Mom.
Happy birthday on the YouTube channel. So it'll be coming out later, but she's been such a huge support. So happy birthday, Sandra. Yes, if you want to support the show, always subscribe, share the show with other people. Go to yourcreativejurneypodcast.com. And we also have a donation button.
Sel just kept us going for another month.
Sel, thank you so much. You just gave us a super chats for $25. Thank you so much. If you also want to donate, you can go over to yourcreativejourneypodcast.com. We've got a little button for buy me a coffee. So you can just punch that button, and it just helps with the support of the show. I want to say big thanks to all the people that help us on the social media team. We've got Heather, Christina, Dari, Heather. Who else am I missing? Sam's on there. All these people. Craig's on there. Craig's there. We love Craig. Hey, I want to give a big shout out to our audio engineer that's been helping us out, Steve Erdeman. Thank you so much for helping to mix this. He's our audio engineer, Steve Erdeman. Yes. Thanks for listening to the show, ladies and gentlemen. We're going to end the audio podcast and say a quick bye to our YouTube folks, but we will see you next week. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everybody. Kevin, kick in that awesome music from the Swells.
Here it comes. All right, that's our audio podcast. Eric, you are a rock star. I just want to give a big shout out from all the people on YouTube here, like people just saying that they loved you so much in just Nashville, and just like you've been incredibly inspiring here. So you've been getting plenty of shout outs, dude. So thank you.
Yeah, I was like, I talked too much. We didn't get to go and ask people's questions, answer people's questions.
That's right. I was seeding them in. So they have been
okay, good.
They've been naturally happening.
My mom said she was listening, so we'll see. I'll have to find out.
Eric, you were great, but those two goons on there, why were they chatting so much? Thanks, Kenny Landman. He said stellar interview. Appreciate it, buddy.
No one can accuse me of not having anything to say. So
I dig it. Well, I'll tell you what, I think we're going to say goodbye to all of our YouTube folks. Just thanks everybody for showing up every week. You guys are rock stars. We're going to jump off. Paul, you need to say anything, but hey, any shout outs for Vaudacity this week? What do you got, man?
Hey, thanks everybody. Thanks so much. We just have another awesome week of shows. Thursday night is Hunter's show. Friday night, we have our improv show. Thursday night, after Hunter's Quarantine with Friends, Stephanie and Wendy are doing a Galentine's Day episode. It's going to be a lot of fun. Saturday is a special Polly's Online Variety Show. We're telling the story of how Jamie and I met, fell in love, and the 6 years it took for us to finally get engaged. It's all set to live music and improv comedy. So it's going to be a lot of fun. Saturday night. Join us.
So please, if you like this video, like and subscribe for VaudacityNetwork.com. All right, we're going to say bye to all of our YouTube folks. Hey, everybody, thanks so much for joining us. Eric, stick around. I'll say goodbye to you in just a second. Thanks, gang. We'll see you next week. Bye.
Thanks, everybody.